Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. Let's commence. Today is chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga, Yoga of the Supreme Person. Purusha means person, right? And Uttama is supreme. Therefore, it is called Supreme Person, right? So, Yoga of the Supreme Person. That is what is the heading of today's chapter. We'll be examining about a tree in the first initially few verses. It's a metaphorical tree, right? So, please pay a little attention. There's a little um, it requires a little closer attention to understand what exactly this this tree actually stands for, okay, and where it is and where and so on. So just pay a little more attention to it and it should be okay, right? But first we always pay our obeisance to Sri Radha Govinda temple deities at ISKCON Mangalore, and our pranams to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Satarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah, yesterday's chapter had clear demarcations, right? We saw about the different modes of material nature, right? So Satvik, Rajas, and Tamas. Those were the three headings under which we saw their characteristics, and then what happens when a person dies in those modes. And then we importantly saw that it is necessary to transcend those modes if we need to get back to Godhead. So that was a brief summary of what we studied yesterday. Now today this is the overview. Okay, so first heading is the one which has the tree, right? So that is becoming detached from the material world. Then our next heading would be transmigration, its features and characteristics. Then we see Krishna as a maintainer, and eventually we conclude the chapter with summary of Vedanta Sutra. Okay, so let's proceed with examining this tree that we have here. 15.1. Hare Krishna. 15.1.
अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता पंचदशोऽध्यायः पुरुषोत्तमयोगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच ऊर्ध्वमूलमधशाकम् अश्वत्थं प्राहुरव्ययम् छन्दांसि यस्य पर्णानि यस्तं वेद स वेदवेत्.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Okay, right. So that's the tree I was telling you about. Let's see what this tree is actually about. But then Krishna says that this is an inverted tree, right? So where do you see an inverted tree? Nowhere, right? The material world is a perverted shadow of the spiritual, right? Similarly, this fact is established. The fact that I just said, that the material world is a perverted shadow of the spiritual, that is reflected because by this metaphor, by the tree, right? Similarly, this tree too is a perverted shadow of the spiritual tree, right? So shadow of the tree is there for some time, but then when there is no light, it can no longer exist, because shade is there because of the light, right? But the tree exists for all time. That's the in the spiritual kingdom, there's this tree, and that shadow of that spiritual tree is what actually falls on the material world. So it's an analogy, or a rather metaphor, to this fact that the material world is a perverted shadow of the spiritual one, right? So the shadow exists for some time and then it vanishes, right? Similarly, this world too continues to come into existence and is annihilated. But then there is one place which is never annihilated, and that is the Lord's abode, right? So that is the spiritual world, and this is the material world. This material world, understand please, that this is just the shadow of the spiritual world, right? So therefore, this world broadly is a fool's paradise, right? It is for the foolish people. All the enjoyment in the world is only but a hallucination of the mind. It does not exist. What I said now is easy to say, that everything you see around you is Maya, but then the Maya is so strong that it really fools a perception. It's like the previous example I gave. You look at the earth in your limited perspective. What you see is a flat surface, right? So you conclude that the earth is flat, but in fact the earth is actually round. Now, the fact that the earth is actually a globe is a very subtle fact, right? And it is a fact that you will have to infer from certain aspects that is shown in the material world, right? Now, this is also like that. The Maya is so strong that it is very difficult to understand that it is not actually in existence. It's only a hallucination of the mind. So, in a way, therefore, happiness in the material world lies more in the anticipation. That's why perhaps John Keats said that hopefully traveling is better than arriving at the destination, right? Now, supposing there is, assume just for an instance, that there is a apple somewhere here. There is, in fact, an apple here. You see here, these are the fruits which are in the tree, right? Now, you see that apple and you want to go reach out and take that apple, right? So you embark on the journey, right? And you try and get nearer to the fruit, right? But only reaching when you reach nearby that fruit, do you realize that it is not actually a fruit, but it is only a shadow, correct? So therefore, what the mind does is it is disappointed initially by this discovery, right? But that it is not actually real. But then what the mind does, it plays tricks on you, right? It plays tricks on you in the sense it starts to think that this journey that you took in order to reach to this place which is actually a mirage, that is happiness in itself, right? So the mind somehow or the other tries to get some benefit out of that, right? That's the problem with the mind. Now what does Krishna, I've said this several times in the class. Krishna says that this world is dukhalayam asasatam, right? It's a temporary world of misery, right? Suppose someone is dropped in an ocean, right? For some time they can stay afloat, depending on how well they can swim. Eventually they will come a stage when fatigue will overcome and they will no longer be able to swim, right? So they'll have to drown. Now, by this, the cycle of birth and death continues, right? We struggle to keep swimming in this material world, but the problem is we are not going to keep swimming because fatigue will set in and we will have to drown, and then we get born again and again and again, and this cycle keeps on continuing, right? So the point is, how do you get out of this ocean, right? So this intelligent person understands that this ocean that we are being put into each and every time is just an illusion, but we need to get out of that illusion, right? And return back to Godhead. That is the true happiness. Okay. um See what, I'll tell you what. See, we've seen this also earlier. For example, we see that Krishna's body is Sat Chit and Ananda, right? Sat Chit Ananda form, right? Sat, Chit and Ananda. We want Sat, Chit and Ananda, right? What is Sat? Sat is eternal. Our soul is eternal, but this body that we have is not eternal, right? Similarly, Chit is knowledge. Normally we don't like ignorance, right? When we do not know something, we try and find out the answer for it, right? But then we don't know. See, basically we start from this concept of not knowing, right? That is ignorance. Okay. And Ananda is of course bliss, right? And definitely anybody in this world would agree that there is no Ananda, right? So what we are searching for in this world, that is both all the trio, right? Sat Chit and Ananda is definitely not here, but it seems as if it is here, and that's because of the shadow, right? That shadow is what makes it appear like it is here when it is actually not, because the shadow is not you. I hope I'm being clear on the allegory, right? So it is, seems it is here, but in fact it is not. So where is the tree actually? The tree is in the spiritual world, and so is Sat, Chit and Ananda, right? So now this book Bhagavad Gita, as it is entirely about how to swim across this tree. I mean, how to climb this tree, swim across the ocean of desires. For example, you see this place here. This is the ocean of desire. And once you swim across this ocean is when you get to Godhead, right? So you have to extricate yourself from this complicated tree, which has these pious acts. In one side we have Vedic hymns, the leaves it says as the Vedic hymns. Then we have sense objects, sense gratification, impious acts, religiosity, and you see this person here with this weapon. He's trying to do something that becomes important in the next verse. Let's examine it when we come there, but just note that this person is trying to do something with this axe, right? And then we cross this, we have the ocean of desire to itself to cross to swim through, right? And then when we do that, we eventually get to the Godhead. But the point is, we don't mostly realize that we have to extricate ourselves from this tree. We are usually stuck in this tree, in this place here, right? So we need to get over this, and that's the entire book. For this entire book is to how to break that cycle. That's why you will not find injunctions like in the Vedas. If you follow the Vedas, you only go to the higher planes, but then you cannot literally break from this jail. And that this knowledge of how to break from free from the jail is what is there in Bhagavad Gita. How do you get over this this uh, jail, this material jail that has been that is in existence, right? The 15 lokas basically. Okay, so that is broadly the example of the tree which Krishna gives, right? But we should also understand the scheme in which it appears. Okay, in chapter 12, the last of the bhakti chapters, we saw Krishna conclusively answering that bhakti is the best way, right? But Arjuna persists in getting to know how to extricate himself from the world, right? What happens as Krishna is explaining about Kshetrajna, then in the last chapter we saw about the material modes of nature, their characteristics and the efforts. He concludes with this inverted tree. So it's like one entire flow of conversation, right? So the takeaway is that we have to cut this tree. You see this person I was telling you about, he is a person who is trying to cut that tree, right? Now we need to cut this tree, swim across the ocean of desire, and then reach Godhead at Goloka Vrindavan. That is the object of this life, right? So today what we are doing, we are taking the shelter of our senses and we are suffering, right? So the object is to relieve this, control the senses, go back to the Purusha Uttama, right? And serve him. That is the entire object of this life, right? That is 15.1. Let's see what 15.2 says. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three material modes of nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to be fruitive activities. These are bound fruitive I'm sorry. And these are bound to the fruitive actions of the human society, right? So this is more explanation about the about the tree, right? So Krishna says that the branches of the tree actually extend downward and a little upward also, and it is nourished by the three material modes of nature. The twigs that you find in a usual tree, they're not twigs here, they are the objects of senses. And the tree has root going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of the society. So Krishna speaks of the human society as a whole here, right? So all of human society is involved in fruitive activities, right? They want to realize the fruits of their actions. So this tree has the root in that basic concept. So that's what is the message here. Now, what is it that we should do with this tree? That is found in verses 3 and 4. Okay, of chapter 15. Let's see. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut this tree with the weapon of detachment. So doing, one must seek that place from which, having gone once, no one returns, and there surrender to that supreme personality of Godhead, from whom everything has begun and in whom everything is abiding since time immemorial. Right? So what is Krishna saying here? Krishna again clarifies that the real form of this tree, is not here in this material world. This real tree is actually in the spiritual world, right? So what you see here is only the shadow of that tree, right? And none can understand where this tree has its beginning and where its end is, right? So you can neither go to the top of the tree, nor can you go to the absolute root of the tree, right? But the point is this, that you have to do. You have to cut down that tree. And how do you cut it down? You have to cut it down with determination, right? With determination in the sense that you should be determined to cut the tree, but with what? The weapon used is the detachment. So you have to be detached from this world, and you have to cut down this tree, the shadow of this tree, by detachment. So that is how you get over this material world, right? Determination, as it says, is the fundamental principle here. Determination, detachment. Okay, and Krishna makes a reference to this place, right, where the place from which one going once, one never returns, right? That is the kingdom of God, right? Let's see in the next verse, it gives the preliminary qualification to go to this kingdom of God, and then the verse after that, 15.6, describes the nature of the kingdom of God. So all these three, from 3 to 6, are to be read together, right? Right. Let's proceed to the next. This is again just a broad explanation of what we have just been saying, right? This is the banyan tree. The material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual. So let's examine it from here. One is, this tree is in the spiritual world. The reflection of this tree is on desire, because the ocean is there, right? So the ocean, the tree falls in the reflection, and that is why it appears to be inverted. You see, that's why it's inverted. The original tree is in the spiritual world, but when it falls as a reflection on the ocean, it appears to be inverted, right? Now that's the reflection. Now point number two, the roots. Okay, the roots grow upwards here, right? Upwards towards Brahmaloka, and the secondary roots grows downwards, which is Bhuloka. Now attachment and aversion bound by fruitive actions by human society. These are the problems with the tree, right? Three are the branches of that tree, right? So the branches are the upper and the lower planet. Four is the Vedic hymns. The leaves are the Vedic hymns. The twigs are the sense objects, which is point number 5, and the tips of the branches are the senses. That's point number 6. Now let's examine 7. This is fruits. This tree, of course, bears fruits, or it appears to bear fruit, and that is dharma, artha, karma, and moksha, right? And point number 9 is living entities involvement, right? They hop from one branch to another, trying to taste the fruit. Up is down and down is up, but then that you realize only when you get near to the fruit of the tree, right? And you can't see how far the tree extends or where it ends. Although living entities are eternal fragmental parts of Krishna, they are struggling because of their association with these senses, right? And where does this tree get their nourishment, get its nourishment from? It is a reflection, remember, but it gets its nourishment from the three material modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance, right? And what is the only way to get out of this tree and go back to the original tree? That is through detachment, right? Right. So this is find one. The first step. There are three steps to get out of this intricate tree, right? So the first one is find one with knowledge, right? So hear properly from him and about the relationship between one and the Lord, so between oneself and the Lord, and then you have to surrender to Lord and then attain eternal abode. And how do you do that? Through the spiritual master. There's no false prestige that he is the Lord of material nature, and that's the problem. That's why we have all been created, because of our desires to enjoy the fruits. We want to take the place of Krishna, and Krishna is supposed to be the only enjoyer, right? But then we want to displace Krishna and become the enjoyer in his place and enjoy the fruits, which is not permitted, right? Give up false association, which is not permitted because it's false ego. We have to understand that we are all eternal fragments of Krishna, right? And we cannot be apart from Krishna in that sense. And once we are apart from Krishna is when all this Maya catches us, right? Therefore, it is that we have to be free from dualities and give up false association. So that's about the tree. Okay. Now there's another analogy, but this is from Mahabharata. Okay, very popular metaphor. Vidura actually explains this to Yudhishthira in this Tri Parva of Mahabharata. Right, beautiful description he gives, right, to explain. But given that we don't have the luxury of time, I'll have to make this short, paraphrase this. Right. So let's see. You see this person here, right? Person hanging to the tree, that person is us. Okay, if we slip, we meet instant death. Okay, the snakes in the pool, let me just zoom in a little. The snakes in the pool, right, below denote time. Okay, and they will surely claim what is theirs, because we are not going to hang out forever, right? But still we are holding to our dear lives here, right? Any time we may slip, and that will be the end, right? Now you see the rats here, one is black and the other one is white. So that is indicative of the passage of days. One is day, the other one is night. Okay, and they are gnawing at the branch on which we are holding on to, right? So eventually, day and night, that is the passage of time, is going to cut down this branch, and we are going to fall. Correct. Similarly, you see this elephant here, right? It's holding on to the trunk of a tree, right? Now this elephant here is the ear. Okay, that's why it's holding on to the entire trunk. So as we age, the closer we are to the snake pit, and yet we hang on, right? We hang on for dear life. And anytime this elephant may succeed in uprooting this entire trunk, and that's pretty much the end of it. Likewise, anytime these two mice, they might succeed in gnawing through the branch, and we are going to fall. So this fact that we are going to fall into this pool of these snakes is beyond doubt. Okay, that is a fact of the matter. Okay, now, but what do? We keep hanging on, right? We hang on, knowing that anytime we can still fall, right? And you see this beehive here, right, on top. This beehive here. So this is all full of bees, of course. Beehive obviously has bees, right? Now those bees are stinging this person. You see these dots by the side. They are stinging this person, right? And those things are the unpleasant experiences that we undergo in life, and we are not even able to sort of scratch the place where it itches because of the bee sting. So we just have to hang on to the branch, because if you are going to take one hand off also, we will not be able to support the weight, right? So the bees just take their own sweet time, and they keep stinging you, right? So those are all the unpleasant experiences that one undergoes in life, right? But once in a while, it so happens that drops of honey fall from the beehive, and this fellow, you see him, he's hanging on. He has his tongue stuck out, right? And these honey drops fall onto the tongue of that person who is sticking out. So the entire purpose of that person hanging on to that branch, in spite of the rats gnawing it, in spite of the elephant trying to uproot the tree, in spite of the daily bee stings that person suffers, he still hangs on for that few drops of honey. And those few drops of honey is what is the pleasant experiences that we get in this full life. And they are just drops, right? We anyone would definitely say that there are more unpleasant experiences in this world than there are pleasant ones, right? And in caught up in all this mess that we fail to see Krishna, right? You just see Krishna on the top left, he's extending his hand, but we fail to see him, right? We fail in the main duty of life. The dharma of the soul in that way is defeated. So the point is to take Krishna's hand, and he will take care of the rest. But then we refuse. We want to hold on and enjoy that a few drops of honey that is very intermittently falling from the beehive, in spite of all these things, in spite of all the passage of time, in spite of the fact that we know for sure that we are going to fall down into this pool where the snakes are just waiting to get at you, right? So this is again an example that Vidura gives to Yudhishthira, that of the importance of surrendering to Krishna, right? So that is a very beautiful metaphor. So let's continue. This is 15.6. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Na tadbhasayate suryo na shashango na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama.
That abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world. So Krishna now here is speaking of his world, right? Now, Krishna is saying that it doesn't have a separate light source. Why? Because he is the light, right? The effulgence is from him. For earth, there is always some third party light source, right? But not in Goloka Vrindavan. So, and Krishna says that one who enters it never returns to this material world. Because once the soul realizes its mistake and it has taken all its efforts to go back, it will not repeat that same mistake again, right? So it is a promise by Krishna that it is not going to return, right? Somehow we have to book a ticket, get a ticket, buy a ticket, whatever ways to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. And once you go to Goloka Vrindavan, you're never going to return to the material world. That is, it's bliss then forever. That's how they say, in the fairy tales, they lived happily ever after. That is how it is in Goloka Vrindavan. Once you get back to Goloka Vrindavan, it's happiness ever after. And that's the default of the material world is darkness, right? And it is always dependent upon an external light source. The first part of the phrase of the verse that I'm referring to, okay, where Krishna says that abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or the moon. You see, in space also, unless there is an external light source, the default setting is darkness, right? So you need some energy, there some way to bring in light. That is the default setting of the material world. But in the spiritual world, it's the other way around. Again, call back to the first verse where Krishna says that this is just a reflection, the perverted reflection of the spiritual world, right? Here it's the other way around. That it is darkness is the default setting, whereas in the spiritual world, light is the default setting. That's why Krishna says here that it is not illumined by the sun or the moon, nor by electricity, right? So that's how that is. Okay, that is 15.6. Let's proceed further to 15.7. Hare Krishna.
ममेवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूत सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति.
The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned lives, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which includes the mind. So this is the verse which I've been referring to throughout the session so far, right? Because anytime I say that we are part of Krishna, it is because of this verse in chapter 15, verse 7. Okay, because Krishna says that all the living entities in this world are eternal fragmental parts, are his eternal fragmental parts, right? We already know this before also. You see, in chapter 2, there was the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita, the fact that we are not the body, but we are the soul. That soul is a fragmental part of Krishna, right? But here this verse is also important for the reason that Krishna himself recognizes the struggle that we are facing, right? He says that the reason for the struggle is the six senses, which includes the mind, right? That is the cause of our struggle. It's the senses. That's why throughout the Gita, you will find this lesson that we have to control the senses, right? That self control has to be exercised with determination. It requires some amount of effort, right? It's not going to come easily because the senses are very strong. And I gave you this example for each of the animals where for example, the for an elephant, the sense of touch is strong. For a moth, the sense of sight is strong. Like that, they are animals of subtle nature. But then when it comes to humans, all our senses are strong, right? So it requires that much amount of more effort to be put in order to control our senses. So it takes a lot of determination and conviction to control our senses. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. For an animal, it's just one or two senses which are strong. But then for us, because it is that we have this power of discrimination, the mind, uh, and unless we control it, it's going to be difficult to control the senses, right? So that is about the second part. Now the first part, I wanted to explain a little more. Like, let's see, Krishna says here that we are part and parcel of him, right? So we are part of we have fragmented eternal parts of Krishna. Understand the difference between part and parcel and merely being a part. Okay, let's take the part and parcel first. For example, sugar, right? If you break off a little sugar from a chunk of sugar, it will still have its same properties, right? It is still going to taste sweet. It will still be powdery or granular, at least in nature. It will be just like the properties of a larger chunk of the sugar, right? So a bit of sugar is part and parcel of the larger sugar cube. And similarly, let's take the ocean, right? The ocean is vast, but if you take a tiny drop and put it onto your tongue, it'll still taste the same way as the entire ocean is going to be, right? So again, it has the same properties of the ocean. Therefore, that drop of ocean is also part and parcel of the ocean itself. Now, what is a part? Let's take a chair and you break that chair, right? Then can you call the chair a part and parcel? Because you're not going to be able to sit on the chair, right? So it is only then a part of the chair. The broken parts are only then parts. But then here, what Krishna is saying is they are the part and parcel of Krishna's, my eternal fragmental parts is what Krishna says. So the point is this: we are quantitatively different from the Lord, right? So quantitatively, he's way, way, way vaster, right? But then qualitatively, we share the same attributes. Okay. The point is, we are minuscule. Okay, minuscule when compared to the Paramatma, and the Jivatma can never become the Paramatma. We have to realize that, right? But then we have to take we should rejoice in the fact that we have essentially the same characteristics, right? So that is important to understand. Okay, 15.8 now. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
15.8.
गृहीतवैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्.
The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. So now we have concluded one part of the chapter where we saw about the tree, the reflection of the spiritual tree. Then we've also seen how Krishna is self-effulgent, right? So that is like one part of the chapter. Now we go on to the heading of transmigration, right? Now this example I have already given once in chapter 13, right? The air, it doesn't have an inherent quality, right? If it passes through a rose garden, it is going to smell fragrant. I mean, it's going to be fragrant. And if it passes through a dirty place, it's going to stink, right? Similarly, the soul is affected by the karma that the body gathers. That is why, in order to better serve the soul, the body has to cooperate with the soul and try and get good karma initially, at least. Eventually, once the equations are balanced, then we focus on akarma, right? So we should be careful in what we do. Think before you do, because burning bad karma is not easy. And chanting, I've told you this before, is the recommended way to burn karma. It just burns through karma, right? So we've seen lessons in this course itself, right, on what is to be done about refraining from gathering karma. It's surrender to the Lord, sacrifice the result for God, do the work for God itself. So no karma will touch you, right? Eventually, you take shelter of the Lord, and no karma can touch a true devotee, right? If we don't serve Krishna, then we become servant of the senses, and that leads to a lot of trouble, right? Okay, that's okay. 15.9. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So Krishna never stands in the way of your desires, right? Supposing you want to eat meat, right? But you are in the human body. You're in the human body. So Krishna says, all right, today we have given you the human body, but then you don't appreciate the value of it. So what we'll do is we'll give you a a body which suits your desire. Now, if you are desire to eat meat, all right, you take the body of a tiger. So I've given this example before. You don't have any social restrictions. You're free to just tear the meat and eat, and you of course have the thrill of the kill, right? And it's just the satisfaction of that desire. So Krishna never stands in the way of that. Okay. And this brought me to this video actually that I saw. It's very nice. Just have a look at this, and then I'll explain a little more about it. What you saw was many living entities, right? And each of these living entities have obtained their kind of ear, their tongue, and the sense of touch, all according to their desires, right? That's what the previous verse says, right? The previous verse said the living entity takes another gross body. So let's see what the previous verse says. Living entity taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose, right? So that is what was thought to be shown here, right? So with that features, that person would be able to satisfy his desires in a better way, right? So these are all living entities. They've all taken gross bodies, and they all have a set of certain features. Those certain features will help in satisfying their desires as the body wants it, right? So a cow cannot desire to eat meat like the tiger, right? So if it develops such a desire, it gets the body of a tiger in the next birth so that it is able to satisfy its desires, right? So depending on the mind they have, they enjoy a particular set of sense objects. So some may like meat, and I give you this example. If you're a tiger, all restrictions are removed, so you're not going to sit around in one place like a cow and chew grass, right? You're then rajasic in nature. You hunt and kill. All that, of course, again depends on your karma, right? Karma and your desire. So eventually these are the two things that determine what is the sort of body that we are going to get in the next round, right? See, but the point is that we shouldn't go to the next round. That's the whole point of the matter, right? That's something that we should not forget. We should not go to the next round. Otherwise we keep having rounds, no, like in a boxing ring, and then we get knocked out eventually if we don't get to the destination in time. Okay, let's go to 15.10. Hare Krishna Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु। उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः।
The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Okay, let's also examine 15.11. The endeavoring transcendentalist who is situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. Okay, so these two verses are on the importance of knowledge. Supposing you have a car breakdown, you lift up the bonnet and you have absolutely no idea of what is running into what inside the bonnet, right? And we have no idea of how it is functioning. But when you call a mechanic looks into what's wrong with the car, into the bonnet, he knows exactly what is to be done, correct? So the point is this: Krishna says that the foolish cannot understand this concept of birth and rebirth, and how each succeeding body is given based on the karma earned in the previous births, and what happens when the modes of nature operate upon the body, right? Similarly, in 15.11, Krishna says that what is Krishna further says about the nature of the person who sees these things clearly. So you have to put the aura where it should rightfully belong. You should put the aura on an endeavoring transcendentalist who is situated in self-realization. And only Krishna says only such a person would be able to understand what is actually taking place. A person who has no self-realization, even if he tries, is not going to understand, right? See, for that matter, the very word Veda means knowledge, right? And Vidwan means a person with knowledge, right? So focus should be on what is that? Simple living, high thinking, right? So as mentioned before, the point is that we have to get into self-realization as soon as possible. And how is that? Bhagavad Gita as it is. Straightforward answer. And again, I think, yeah, that about covers both 10 and 11. Okay, now let's examine the next verse, which is 12. Okay, now this shifts upon a little like chapter 10, right, where Krishna deals with his opulences. So this is what Krishna says in 15.12. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire are also from me, right? So the next couple of verses are also about the splendors of Krishna, right? This is like that opulence chapter that we saw in chapter 10, the vibhutis of Krishna. Okay, so Krishna here says, this is very self-explanatory, right? So he's the splendor of the sun, he's the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of the fire are all Krishna. Okay, let's see 15.13, Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
गामा विषय च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमोजसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्वा सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मकः।
I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and here that and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. When we say Krishna is everything, we truly mean that he is really everything, right? Now imagine this was 5,000 minimum of 5,500 years ago itself. We knew that there is some force in the solar system which is keeping the planets in orbit, right? And just about 500 years ago, a person comes around called Newton and he says this, he calls this gravity, right? Somehow we knew of all this, but then we have lost our way in between, right? That's tragic that so much knowledge has been lost. But I mean, we should take so hard in the fact that we are trying to revive all the old knowledge nowadays. So there are active steps being taken. Well, one of which, of course, is this ISKCON classes that we have. Apart from this, please do continue on level 2, because all these verses require some more elaboration, which I'm not able to do right now because of the paucity of time. Okay, so please continue with level 2. It'll put things in better perspective. Okay, and these things wouldn't be easy to understand if you just read it on your own, right? So if you just read it on your own, you wouldn't know what the context is based upon, what is actually Krishna saying, what does he mean by these things. That's why the spiritual master from the sampradayas are so important. But anyway, I've explained all that before quite in detail, so I proceed to the next verse. Let's see. 15.14, Mataji.
अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसमायुक्तः पञ्चाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधम्.
I am the fire of digestion in every living body, and I am the air of life outgoing and incoming, by which I digest the 4 kinds of food stuff. Okay, so Krishna says here that he is the uh, the fire in the digestive system also. And what are the 4 kinds of food stuff? That it's not food stuff like a dish, a name of a dish, right? It's more in the nature of how you eat it. There are some foods which you have to chew a lot. There are some foods which are more liquid in nature and so on. So that is what is meant by the 4 kinds of food stuff. Okay, so 15.15.
सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तस्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम्.
I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas am I to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Krishna again repeats here that he is in the hearts of all living beings. We've seen this again. This is another one of those golden threads that Krishna says in almost all the chapters, right? He is seated in everyone's heart. That finds echoes in so many chapters in the Bhagavad Gita itself, right? And we saw that specifically in chapter 13, right? Kshetrajna, where Kshetrajna comprises of two, the soul and the super soul, right? So even there we saw it. Now Krishna further says here that he is the cause of smriti, jnanam, and apohanam. That is remembrance. What is smriti? Remembrance. Jnanam is knowledge, and apohanam is forgetfulness. Now the problem with the forgetfulness is it's a very often a misunderstood concept, right? Forgetfulness can be a real gift. Imagine what will happen if we were able to recall all our past lives. We would go crazy, right? So many lives, so many deaths, so many bad memories, and then intermingle with them are a very few good ones. Happiness, distress. I say something harsh to a friend in anger, and then I regret it so much later that as time passes by, we tend to forget that, and such forgetfulness brings peace, right? That's why it's said that time will heal everything, right? Because imagine if one is not able to forget, then all the bad experiences, all the bad memories stay so fresh in mind that the concept of forgiveness will never be there, right? And until you it that takes the edge of that insult or that bad experience, we would find it very difficult to forgive a person. So it's really not fair that forgetfulness has this very bad reputation, but it's not bad at all the time. Forgetfulness in fact a blessing actually. right? So, and then in the next part of the verse, Krishna says that the Vedas, all the Vedas speak of Krishna, right? And he is in fact the compiler of Vedas. So what does that make of Veda Vyasa? Veda Vyasa does is a form of Krishna. You remember I had mentioned about the 6 categories of avatars. He's one of that categories, right? One of that categories also includes Ved Vyasa, right? And then Krishna concludes this verse saying that he is the knower of the Vedas also. Okay, so that is that. Let's see 15.16. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every entity is called infallible. So what is the difference between the material world and the spiritual world? This is the difference. One In the material world, everybody is fallible, everybody is going to make mistakes, everybody is going to commit sins, right? Then in the spiritual world, that's not, because Krishna is the creator of the spiritual world, right? So that doesn't apply there. Okay. Let's see now 15.17. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Lord Himself, who has entered into these worlds and is also maintaining them. Right now, this picture that you just saw on the screen is a uh, picture, is a story about the 16,108 princesses who were abducted by a demon called Narakasura. Right. So these damsels in distress, they pray to Krishna to rescue them from this demon. Right. And Krishna came there with Satyabhama. That's a different story why he comes there with Satyabhama, right? But the point is, eventually he vanquishes the demon and he rescues all of them. Okay, after saving them all, they raised a point that now that they have been abducted by a demon, who would marry them, right? And they gave the example of Sita. Now they said that there is no point of being saved, because anyway we are now all going to be branded. So they say that it's no point, Krishna, of you saving us, so we all want to marry you. Okay, because they also say that now that we've seen you and your attractiveness, they say that we all want to get married to you, right? So that's the conundrum that Krishna is in. So Krishna explains to them saying that, look, I married, Satyabhama is right by my side, so I cannot give in to your request. But then the devotion is so intense, they keep insisting that they get married to him. And then just out of the sheer devotion, Krishna marries all the 16,108 princesses, right? And he asks Vishwakarma, the divine architect, to make palaces for each one of those 16,108 eight princesses. So it so happens that Narada visits all the 16,108 eight palaces, and he sees Krishna in each of those palaces discharging his marital duties, right, and keeping his spouse most happy, right? And this is a story to show how the glories of Krishna, right? Each of those houses has a Krishna in it. So imagine the 16,000 forms of Krishna in each of those houses, and their spouses are most happy. Okay, right? So that is 15.17. Because this is an example to show that the infallible nature of Krishna, right? That's how it's interlinked. Okay, 15.18 now.
यस्माक्षरमतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमः अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रथितः पुरुषोत्तमः.
Because I'm transcendental, beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I am the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. Now you know why it's called Purushottama, yeah? The yoga of Purushottama, because Krishna is the supreme person here. He says, I am celebrated both in the world, which is this material world, and in the Vedas as that supreme person. That's why Purushottama, Purusha Uttama. Okay, that's 15.18. All the demigods, right, Brahma, Shiva, are all offering prayers to Vishnu at Vaikuntham. And here is Lord Shiva explaining the glories of Krishna. Okay, there's a context to this actually. Parvati asks Shiva, who is the god that one must worship? Okay, this comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8. Okay, and Lord Shiva says, Aradhanam Sarvesam Vishnu Aradhanam Param. Okay, she says, my dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of the demigods, the worship of Vishnu is the topmost. Okay, then Shiva goes on to add Tasmat Patram Devi um, Adyanam Samarchanam, right? That is however, even above the worship of Lord Vishnu is rendering service to the Vaishnavas who are related to Lord Vishnu. Okay, so that's why even Shiva is called Shambho, right? It's called Vaishnavanam Yata Sambho. That Shiva is a prime Vaishnava. The problem is we dispute. I mean, a lot of people take serious issues with this fact that Shiva himself is saying that Vishnu worship is the highest worship, right? But then the problem is we don't read, no? We don't read the Vedas, we don't read the Puranas. So it is that we feel that we have to go and define Shiva, right? When Shiva himself is saying that Vishnu worship is the highest worship, that too to his spouse, no less. Okay, right? So that is that, and of course we have seen what Brahma says in the Brahma Samhita. I've given this verse quite often, right? So we see 5.1 so many times I've mentioned it. So that Brahma is also saying that Shiva is also saying this. We've seen already what Arjuna said in Parandama verse. All that they all converge into this one point that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, right? Okay, I think we are nearing completion. 15.19.
यो मामेवमसम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमं स सर्वविद् भजति मां सर्वभावेन भारत.
Whoever knows me as the supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is to be understood as the knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharata. Where are we today? We are in the Jnana Yoga chapters. And what is Krishna saying? Even in the Jnana Yoga chapters, there are two things that he's again mentioning, right? One, faith, two, devotional service. And that is again towards the end of most of the Jnana Yoga chapters, you will find this reiterated, right? Repeated again and again, that devotion is the highest form, bhakti is the highest form. And is borne out by this sloka here, right? So Krishna says, whoever knows me as the supreme personality of Godhead, but the most important thing is the next two words, without doubting, right? Without doubting. That is, you shouldn't have that. That's why faith, I've mentioned this before, faith is so important. This doubt creates shatters faith. That's the problem. Questions, yes, but not doubt. Okay. And the person who understands that Krishna is the supreme personality of Lord Godhead, what happens? He is understood to be the knower of everything, right? And what does he do as a knower of everything? He engages in devotional service, right? And that is why engaging in full devotional service is the most confidential information. And why is it the most confidential information? It is because it is not commonly available, right? Because you have to have that amount of self-realization to understand, to have that amount of faith, to know that Sikh Krishna is the supreme personality of God. And only then would you go on and render devotional service. And that was why it is referred to as the most confidential knowledge. All this has from chapters past, right? Right. Let's proceed to the next verse, concluding verse for today. 15.20. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is now disclosed by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So I've just explained this, right? This is why it is the most confidential knowledge, this knowledge of performing devotional service. So Krishna also brings it into the Jnana Yoga chapters, because this is knowledge essentially. This knowledge is the fact that we have to render devotional service. So in that way, Krishna also includes it in the Jnana Yoga chapters also. Right. So with that, we conclude today's chapter. Mataji, please conclude.
Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yogo Nama Panchadashodhyayah. Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji. Right. So what have we seen so far? Let's see now. First, we saw about the tree, right? What tree was it? It is the perverted shadow of the spirit of the tree in the spiritual world, right? So the material world in itself is a reflection, is a perverted reflection of what is there in truth, in reality, which is the spiritual world, right? And what is this material world covered of? It is covered of Maya. So what should we do to that tree? We have to cut that tree with what? With determination, first of all. And what is the weapon that you use for it? It is detachment, right? So that's how you're supposed to cut the tree. Then we saw, of course, about transmigration, this fact that it is desires and karma that give us the next body that we are going to get. So that was transmigration that we saw. Then, of course, we saw Krishna as the maintainer. We saw that he is the digestive fire. He is the light in the sun and the moon and the stars, right? And then eventually we concluded with Vedanta Sutra, which again calls out to devotional service, right? So that is what we examine today broadly in the chapter. Tomorrow is chapter 16. Very nice chapter tomorrow. Okay. And let's conclude with the Shri Guru Pranam. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Ananjana Salakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pabanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. Ashtakam we have Mataji. I'm sure we have.
Amrita Mataji.
Amrita Mataji is here. Wonderful. Okay, let's see. Yes, Mataji, thank you for raising your hand. I made you co-host. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
नीलया कुचेलमुनिपालितं कृपाकरं नीलनीलमिन्द्रनीलनीलकान्तिमोहनं बालनीलचारुकोमलालकं बालनीलचारुकोमलालकं विलास गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये इन्दुकुन्दमन्दहासमिन्दिरादरादरं नन्दगोपवन्दनं सनन्दनादिवन्दितं नन्दगोदनं सुरारिमर्दनं समस्त गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये वारिहारहीरचारुकीर्तितं विराजितं द्वारकाविराहमां पूजता सूर्यलोचनं भूरिमेरुधीरमादिकारणं सुसेव्य भूरिमेरुधीरमादिकारणं सुसेव्य गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये शेषभोगसायिनं विशेषभूषणोज्ज्वलं घोषमाणकिङ्किणी विभीषणातिपोषणं शोषणाकृताम्बुजं विभीषणार्तिचं भजं शोषणाकृताम्बुजं विभीषणार्चितं पदं गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये वन्दिताखिलस्तुतं पुण्डरीकवासरं कुण्डलाप्रभासमानतुण्डकण्डमङ्गलं पुण्डरीकसन्नुतं जगन्नुतं मनोज्ञकं पुण्डरीकसन्नुतं जगन्नुतं मनोज्ञकं गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये आञ्जनेय मुख्यपालवानरेन्द्र कृन्तनं कुञ्जराणि भञ्जनं निरञ्जनं सुभाकरं मञ्जुकञ्जपत्रनेत्रराजितं विराजितं मञ्जुकञ्जपत्रनेत्रराजितं विराजितं गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये रामनेय यज्ञधाम भामिनी वरप्रदं मनोहरं गुणाभिराम उन्नतोन्नतं गुरुं सामगानवेणुनाथलोलमर्जितस्तकं सामगानवेणुनाथलोलमर्जितस्तकं गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचारचोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये रङ्गदिन्दिरङ्गमङ्गलाङ्गशौर्यभासदा सङ्गदा सुरोत्तमागबङ्ककप्रदायकं तुङ्गवैरवाभिराममङ्गलामृतं सदा तुङ्गवैरवाभिराममङ्गलामृतं सदा गोपाल बालचार चोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बाल चार चोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये नीलया कुचेलमुनिपालितं कृपाकरं नील नीलमिन्द्र नील नीलकान्तिमोहनं बालनीलचारुकोमलालकं बालनीलचारुकोमलालकं विलास गोपाल बालचार चोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचार चोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचार चोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये गोपाल बालचार चोर बालकृष्णमाश्रये हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Very pleasant. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So can we
Hare
have
Krishna.
Shishtathagam?
Oh,
We
yes,
have time?
certainly. Oh, Shishtakam is a
But
lovely, lovely Ashtaka. Please go ahead. Please go
Neha
ahead.
Mataji could read the screen, English translation.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Neha Mataji is probably on the phone. I'll do it.
Okay.
Just a second, please. Just as a background for those who don't know about Shishashtakam, it was sung by oh my God, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, when he first visited Jagannath Puri, right? So he was so overwhelmed by the deity's presence there that this was spontaneously sung by him, right? So it's a beautiful ashtakam. Just listen to this. The meaning is just below the verse itself. Also, please focus on the meaning a bit.
Yeah.
Because the meaning is also right below it. So that's also it's very, very profound actually. A true bhakti, right? That's how true bhakti feels like. Right? Let's see how it is. Okay. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Sri Shishtashtagam. Chetodharpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavagninirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jeevanam Anandambudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Neha Mataji, would you like to read the meaning?
Sure, Prabhuji. If you want to read, you can continue. Otherwise, I can.
No, please go ahead. Please. Let's complete this and then we'll read the meaning. Mataji. That'll be better. Correct.
Okay.
Let's not interrupt it in between.
Nana Namnamakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishamiha Janinanurakaha Trinadapi Shunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Harihi Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatat bhaktirahaitu tvayi ainandatanuja kim karam Patitam mam vishame bhavambhudao Kripaya tava pada pankaja Stitaduli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galadashudharaya Vadanam gadgadarudaya gira Pulakai nichitam vapokada तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति युगायिदं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्रावृषायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे आश्लिष्य वा पादरतां पिनष्टु माम् अदर्शनामर्महतां करोतु वा यथा तदा वा विददातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव परः न परः हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Thank you so much, man. That was really beautiful rendition of the Shishtastakam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Neha Mataji, the screen is yours.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Is it the first one?
Yes, from the top. Please take it from the top. The golden avatar.
Yeah. The golden avatar is in this age of Kali. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is most munificent and freely distributed the transcendental and holy names of the Lord to even the most unqualified people in this world. Although being the supreme personality of Godhead himself and having spread the Yuga Dharma in all the four directions, he did not pen any transcendental literatures, but rather empowered his associates like Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, and others to write the various Bhakti Granthas. It was through their medium that he expounded the truths on Bhakti and glorified the Lord. The only word that is known to have been composed by him are the famous 8 verses making up the Sri Sistastakam, which in themselves contain the complete essence of the entire process of bhakti, starting from the beginning up until the goal of Krishna Prema. These verses were then further explained by various acharyas to throw light on the multi-layered deep meanings of these illustrious shlokas. It can be said without a doubt that whosoever studies deeply these instructions of Sri Sachidananda, understanding them and taking them to heart, has indeed been blessed with a higher understanding of the path of bhakti. These extremely glorious slokas are: Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O mighty armed Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes be? Oh, okay. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no more. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain. So even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he's completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally.
Wonderful, Mataji. Thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you,
read out
Prabhuji, for giving me
specifically.
chance to read this. Uh, we have never realized this, and
Yeah.
reading this is amazing.
It's the depth of bhakti, it's so reflected, so beautifully reflected in this Ashtakam.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to question and answer session. Hrithik Prabhu has a question. Yes, Prabhu. Go on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji, I have a question related to 14.12.
14 point?
12, 1, 2.
14.12. Okay, let's go to 14.12. What is 14.12? Yeah, tell me, go on.
Yes, Prabhuji, I want to know the meaning of intense endeavor.
Intense endeavor is what we work hard, no? For
Yes.
your students, so you stay up night till 3 a.m. or you wake up in the morning 4 a.m. and you study. That is intense endeavor, because you work hard, right, for something. That is intense endeavor. It's that is why it's said that this janma that we have is not actually meant for hard work. It is Rajasic people who work so hard like a donkey. Okay, this birth that we have is for attaining the Lord, right? And it is this purpose of keeping the body and the soul together is just to earn some amount of money to put together, right? It's not that you have to work hard. Why does a person work hard? A person works hard because he wants luxuries in life. Okay, to earn two rotis and some dal is not going to take you a lot of hard work, correct? So it is that general conception in this in the scriptures is that this birth is not meant for hard work. You're not supposed to work like a donkey, because the moment you start working like a donkey, the meaning behind is that you are looking for luxuries, right? Whereas when you should actually be looking for reaching to the Lordhead, correct? Godhead, back to the Godhead. That's how it's supposed to be. But then it's more Rajasic people who are in this intense endeavor. That 14, that verse that you refer to is actually a description of Rajasic people, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a defining characteristic of Rajasic people. Intense endeavor. They work very hard.
So, Prabhu, yes, Prabhu. So, if someone is working for the betterment of society, like say in a charitable organization, like just you have described in intense endeavor, what would it be counted as?
Saying what is the situation if that intense endeavor is not for the person's own well-being, but it is for the well-being of the society? Is that your question? I've told you before, no, it's wrong to say that Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. Madhav Seva is Madhav Seva, not Manav Seva. See, I gave you this example also, if you recall. If a person is drowning in the in a lake, you rush out to go and save him, but then you grab hold of only the dress that person is wearing, and you come back and you say, yeah, I have saved him. That's not true saving, right? You have to save that person. So applying that here, the point is, when you are indulged in Madhav Seva, you're only serving the body. You're not serving the soul, unless you are, of course, in the spiritual path, and you're catering to the soul also. So unless you save that person's soul, you're only catering to the body. And what does Krishna say about the body in the first, in chapter 2, the first lesson? He says that we are not the body, right? That's why Madhav Seva is not Manav Seva. And therefore, to answer your question, even if a person is putting in intense endeavor to serve the society, unless he addresses the spiritual aspect of it, tells people to be in spiritual service to the Lord, it's not worth it. It's not Madhav Seva, it's not Manav Seva is not Madhav Seva. It doesn't work out like that. It's Madhav Seva is Madhav Seva, not the other way around. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
Clear, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Nice question. It was a very nice question, actually, because this doubt is quite often. It's a frequently asked question, actually. Why is it that that Manav Seva is not Madhav Seva? Why can't we just serve our fellow human beings and derive vicarious benefits from it? It doesn't work like that. You have to serve Lord. You're bound to serve Lord. And serving humans is not considered as devotional service, because you're not serving the Lord. You're serving a fellow human being. Unless you ask them also, you try and indulge them, you persuade them to get into devotional service. That perhaps yes, but not otherwise. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
There's a question by Brajesh Prabhuji in our chat box. Prabhuji, if we are detached with material nature, how do one look after his family? We have to earn money for family survival, education of children. We have to work for fruitive results. How far is this practically possible?
Nobody is asking you to give up on all this. What does Krishna say in this is exactly Arjuna's question, isn't it? If you recall chapter 3, this is what he is so bothered about. After I explains so much about chapter 2, in chapter 2, we deal with so many things, many aspects. Chapter 3 exists because of this question raised. It's the exact same question by Arjuna. Arjuna asks, is it better to renounce? Should I renounce? Chapter 4 also, he continues the same question. So also in chapter 5. That's why all this is come into Karma Yoga, right? So you are not supposed to renounce. Krishna says, renunciation is okay, but then you should not renounce your duty that has been bestowed on you, right? And that duty, if you start renouncing, then it's not going to work out for the well-being of your entire family. That's why you have to look after your family. You have to take care of their needs. But then there is a certain way that you have to do it. When you're doing work, you have to do it for Krishna. And when you're getting the result, you have to dedicate it for Krishna. So Krishna never says that you have to give up, go to the forest, sit in meditation and meditate, giving up all your other duties and rights. That's not what Krishna is saying. He never intended that, right? On the contrary, in fact, Krishna says that you should do your duty, provide for your family, take care of their needs, because all that forms part of your dharma. As a husband, you have certain duties towards your wife. As a student, you have a certain duty towards your teacher. As a member of the society, you have a certain duty towards the society. So you cannot give up all this. It's not advisable to do it. Okay. So it is that the only thing is that we should not be focused on the result. Okay. You have to just do your duty. That is what is your right. Your right is to do your duty. The problem is when we identify ourselves with the result and then we think, oh, we are the ones who are doing it, right? That's never the case. Chapter 18, Krishna says, who are the other people, who are the other elements who are involved in doing this? And Prabhu mentioned something about material nature also, right? It's not that detachment from material nature, if I heard it right. It's not detachment from material nature. It is detachment from the fruits of your activities. Material nature binds you everywhere. Okay. Whether you do good things, whether you are in a sattvic mode, whether you're in a rajasic mode, whether you're in a tamasic mode, that is the element of material nature attaching itself to any activity that you do. Therefore, it is, I said, you should transcend it. See, transcend is not mere detachment from the material nature, because that is not possible. What you have to do is transcend. And how do you transcend? There is two ways that Krishna says. One, you have to surrender to Krishna. And two, you have to render devotional service. These are the two ways by which you can transcend material nature. It's not a matter of just detachment. Detachment is from the fruits of your labor. Okay. So transcendence beyond the material nature is what is important. And that, as I mentioned earlier, is through surrender and devotional service. I hope I'm clear.
Prabhuji, yes, Prabhuji. Brijesh Prabhuji is thanking you for that.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, if we detach with people in our family, how we are supposed to
Oh,
do
no, you cannot detach. You should not detach. See, that's the whole point. No, as you progress in this path of devotion, Krishna consciousness, you start seeing Krishna in all your relatives, right? And that intensifies your relationship, in the sense you're more affectionate to them. But not attached. I told you the difference between attachment and affectionate, right? What Dhritarashtra had for his son was attachment, which was wrong, which is the cause of all the troubles, right? But because you're a you're a Krishna conscious person, what does Krishna say in chapter 5? He is the observer, the super soul in all living entities, right? He is in the form of Shirodaksha Vishnu, Pandita Samadarshanaha, right? So when you start seeing Krishna in all living entities, which includes, of course, your relatives, your spouse, your brothers, siblings, your parents, your teachers, all of them, your relationship with them goes on a higher level, right? So as I mentioned, see, it's not detachment. The purpose of life is not detachment. The purpose of life is attachment to Krishna, right? So it is that I hope I'm understand. I think I jumped the gun. I didn't even let you conclude the question. Was that your question? I'm asking it a
Yes,
little
Prabhuji,
late.
that was my question. But
Okay.
seeing that Krishna is in our siblings is very tough for me.
Okay, it is difficult. It is difficult. That's because we have to progress more, right? That's why Krishna says you should have to understand Pandita Samadarshana, right? That learned Brahman, the elephant, the dog eater. You even a dog eater and a dog you would start liking at that level of bhakti, you know. So it takes a little time, it takes a little effort. We have to take active efforts to progress, right? So I know, I understand. Sometimes siblings can be very difficult to handle, especially the young ones. No, it's very difficult to handle. Right, Mataji. Okay. Any further questions? How can we conclude?
No, Prabhuji.
Any further questions? No.
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all for joining. Let's continue chapter 16 tomorrow. Chapter 16 is a very, 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 very sweet chapter again. Okay. No, not much of philosophy there. So let's meet tomorrow 6 a.m. as usual. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
for
Neha
joining.
Mataji, and thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji, Sulochana Mataji.
Thank you,
for your
Prabhuji,
devotion.
and thank you, Sulochana Mataji.
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji.